The oldest legends claimed that every kingdom was built by warriors. But they were wrong. Long before castles pierced the sky, long before alphas ruled vast territories, long before humans carved roads through endless forests, life itself had once walked the world in human form. And then, she disappeared. Her name faded from every book. Her temples crumbled into dust. Even the gods forgot she had ever existed. Only life remembered. Centuries later, the mighty Iron Fang Dominion stood as the strongest werewolf kingdom in the continent. Its walls were impossible to breach. Its warriors never lost battles. Its Alpha King, Aldrich 01, feared nothing. Not rival packs, not war, and certainly not ancient myths. To him, legends were stories told to frightened children. Strength alone decided history, nothing else. Yet no army could fight what now crept through his kingdom. A strange sickness spread from village to village. It wasn't contagious in the ordinary sense. Healthy warriors suddenly collapsed. Plants withered overnight. Livestock refused to eat. Streams turned dull and lifeless. The greatest healers exhausted every remedy. Nothing worked. Each sunrise claimed more lives. For the first time in generations, Iron Fang was losing a battle. Inside the royal council chamber, ministers argued relentlessly. The eastern villages have already fallen. The southern farms cannot grow enough food. Our healers admit defeat. If this continues, winter will finish what the sickness began. Silence settled over the chamber. Then the oldest advisor spoke. There is one person. Every eye turned toward him. A human herbalist. Several nobles laughed. A human? You're asking the Alpha King to trust a human woman? The old advisor remained calm. She has healed villages no physician could save. Aldrich folded his arms. I asked for facts. The advisor nodded. I have them. He placed reports upon the table. Every document told the same story. Children recovering overnight. Animals surviving impossible wounds. Entire villages escaping illnesses without explanation. Every report ended with the same signature, Leora. Aldrich studied the pages for a long moment. He didn't believe miracles existed, but results could not be ignored. Far beyond Iron Fang, hidden between emerald hills and crystal rivers, stood a tiny village untouched by politics. Here lived Leora 01. She woke before sunrise every morning. She gathered herbs while birds sang around her. She thanked every tree before taking its leaves. She apologized to flowers before cutting them for medicine. The villagers often smiled at her strange habits. You talk to plants as though they understand. Leora simply smiled. Maybe they do. She lived alone in a modest wooden cottage, overflowing with drying herbs, colorful flowers, and shelves of handmade remedies. She never charged those who couldn't pay. To her, healing was never a business. It was simply the right thing to do. One afternoon, a desperate mother burst through her door, carrying a feverish little girl. Please! No healer can save her. Leora immediately began preparing medicine. She gently cooled the child's forehead, mixed herbs with warm spring water, held the girl's trembling hands. Hours passed. As evening settled, the child's breathing steadied. Color slowly returned to her cheeks. The fever broke. The grateful mother collapsed into tears. You saved her. Leora only smiled softly. No. She was stronger than the sickness. Unknown to everyone. As Leora held the little girl's hands, tiny green lights had briefly danced beneath the wooden floor. No one noticed, not even Leora herself. Days later, royal soldiers arrived. Their black banners carried the silver crest of Iron Fang. The entire village gathered in silence. The captain stepped forward. "We seek Leora," she approached calmly. "I am Leora." The captain bowed respectfully. "By order of Alpha King Aldrich, you have been summoned to the Iron Fang Dominion." Whispers spread instantly. No human had ever received such an invitation. Leora frowned. "I've never met your king." "You haven't. But he wishes to marry you." The village fell completely silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Leora stared at the captain, convinced she had misunderstood. "Marry? The Alpha King?" The captain nodded once. "It is a royal decree." No one celebrated. Everyone knew what it meant. She wasn't being chosen for love. She was being chosen because the kingdom needed her. Leora looked back at her tiny cottage, the garden she had planted with her own hands, the people she had cared for since childhood, everything she had ever known. She realized that by accepting, she might never see home again. As the royal carriage disappeared over the hills with Leora inside, a single white blossom fell from the basket she carried. The flower touched the dry roadside. Within seconds, green grass spread across the cracked earth for several meters before slowly returning to normal. Hidden among distant trees, a hooded stranger watched without blinking. His scarred hand tightened around an ancient black relic. After centuries of searching, he had finally found the one life itself refused to forget. 3 weeks had passed since Leora entered Iron Fang Castle. She still wasn't treated like a queen. The royal servants obeyed her only because the Alpha had ordered them to. Most nobles refused to acknowledge her presence. Whenever she entered the grand dining hall, conversations stopped. Whispers followed her everywhere. "A human cannot become Luna. She doesn't belong here." The Alpha married beneath his blood. Leora heard every insult, yet she answered none of them. Instead, every morning before sunrise, she quietly walked into the neglected royal gardens, carrying only a small basket of seeds. No guards, no servants, no royal dress, only simple clothes beneath a light cloak. She knelt in the cold soil, removed dead weeds, watered dying flowers, and planted herbs exactly as she had done in her old village. For the first time in years, the abandoned garden slowly began to breathe again. No one understood why. One morning, Aldrich stood on the highest balcony overlooking the gardens. He had intended to inspect military drills. Instead, his attention drifted toward Leora. She wasn't performing magic. She wasn't chanting. She simply smiled while caring for tiny flowers. Birds landed beside her without fear. Butterflies gathered around her shoulders. Even wounded rabbits wandered from nearby forests toward her. Aldrich frowned. He had spent his entire life around wolves. Animals normally feared predators. Yet around Leora, fear disappeared. His captain, Seren-01, noticed his expression. "Your Majesty, you've been watching her every morning." "I've been observing," Seren smiled. "If you say so." Aldrich shot him a cold glance. Seren wisely changed the subject. Meanwhile, the mysterious plague continued spreading. Entire villages sent desperate requests for help. Royal healers admitted defeat. Fields of wheat turned grey. Fruit trees stopped producing crops. Rivers became strangely stagnant. Even newborn wolf pups were becoming sick. For the first time, the people began questioning whether their Alpha could truly protect them. Despite Aldrich's orders to remain inside the castle, Leora secretly visited the infirmary. The sight shattered her heart. Children burning with fever, old men unable to breathe, warriors too weak to stand. She immediately began preparing herbal medicine, grinding roots, boiling leaves, mixing flowers. Working through the entire night, the castle healers watched with skepticism. "A handful of herbs won't save anyone." She simply replied, "Maybe not." but hope deserves a chance. A little boy named Rowan had been unconscious for 5 days. Every healer believed he would die before sunrise. Leora sat beside him throughout the night. She gently held his tiny hand. She whispered softly, "You don't have to fight alone." A single tear rolled down her cheek. As it landed on the boy's hand, something impossible happened. The candle flames throughout the room suddenly burned brighter. Every wilted flower inside the infirmary slowly opened. The air filled with the scent of fresh rain. Tiny emerald lights floated around Leora's fingers before disappearing into the child. No one spoke. Moments later, Rowan opened his eyes. His fever had completely vanished. The room froze. One healer dropped his medicine bowl. Another crossed himself in disbelief. A third whispered, "That wasn't herbal medicine." By sunset, everyone knew. Some called it a miracle. Others called it witchcraft. Some believed the human bride had enchanted the alpha. The royal council demanded answers. One noble stood and shouted, "She is dangerous." Another answered, "Or she may be the only reason our kingdom survives." Arguments divided the kingdom. Aldrich trusted facts, not rumors. He ordered Seren to quietly investigate Leora's past. Everything, her childhood, her family, every person who has ever known her. "I want the truth." Seren departed immediately. Days later, he returned, looking unusually confused. "There is no truth." "What do you mean?" "I questioned dozens of people. They all tell different stories." One villager claimed she had been found sleeping beneath an ancient oak tree as an infant. Another insisted she had appeared after a violent storm. Others swore an elderly traveler had left her at the village years ago. No records existed, no birth certificate, no family, no relatives. It was as though Leora had simply appeared one day. Aldrich felt something he rarely experienced: unease. Deep within the ashen wastelands, an ancient fortress slept beneath black cliffs. No birds flew above it. No trees survived nearby. Inside, an enormous crystal floated in darkness. Suddenly, hairline cracks spread across its surface. Green light reflected within it. A pair of ancient crimson eyes slowly opened. The immortal warlord, Malrek-01, had awakened. He inhaled deeply, then smiled for the first time in centuries. "So, you finally returned." Around him, thousands of stone statues began turning back into living soldiers. His generals knelt immediately. "My lord, have you found her?" Malrek looked toward the distant horizon. "I don't need to search anymore. Life has revealed herself." Over the following days, impossible events became more frequent. Flowers bloomed in the middle of winter. Fruit trees produced harvests overnight. Butterflies appeared in rooms that had never been opened. Dead vines covering the castle walls suddenly turned emerald green. Even injured werewolves healed days faster whenever Leora visited the royal stables. The castle servants became frightened. One whispered, "The castle is changing." Another answered, "No. Something inside the castle is waking up." At the center of Iron Fang Castle stood an enormous tree. It was older than the kingdom itself. No leaves had grown on it for over 2,000 years. Children believed it was cursed. Generations of kings had tried everything to restore it. Nothing worked. One quiet afternoon, Leora wandered into the courtyard. She noticed the lonely tree. Its bark looked almost wounded. She gently rested her palm against its trunk. "I'm sorry. You've been alone for a very long time." The wind suddenly stopped. A deep vibration echoed beneath the earth. The ground trembled. Cracks spread through the courtyard. The dead branches began moving. Tiny green buds appeared. Then thousands of emerald leaves exploded across every branch at once. Golden flowers bloomed. The entire castle watched in stunned silence. The impossible had happened. The forgotten tree had awakened. The earth beneath the tree split open. Massive stone roots slowly moved aside. An enormous circular doorway emerged from beneath the castle. Its surface was covered in symbols no one recognized, except one. The blind historian, Elden-01, fell to his knees. His trembling hands touched the ancient carvings. His voice barely escaped. This door was never meant to open again. Far away, Malrek stood atop a mountain, overlooking Ironfang. He smiled. The sanctuary has awakened. Now, the goddess cannot hide any longer. Silence covered the royal courtyard. No one moved. The ancient tree, dead for over 2,000 years, now stood covered in brilliant emerald leaves and glowing golden blossoms. Beneath its roots, a gigantic circular stone door slowly rose from the earth. Dust drifted through the air. Ancient mechanisms groaned as if they had not moved since the beginning of civilization. Every soldier instinctively stepped backward. Even the royal wolves lowered their heads. The atmosphere felt alive, not threatening, not evil, simply ancient, far older than the Ironfang kingdom, far older than werewolves themselves. The blind historian, Elden-01, slowly walked toward the enormous door. His fingers traced the carvings. Unlike everyone else, he didn't need eyes. His hands had memorized countless forgotten symbols throughout his lifetime. He suddenly froze. His breathing became uneven. This language, I've only read fragments of it. Aldrich stepped closer. What does it say? Eldon remained silent for several moments before whispering, "The first garden remembers." The surrounding nobles looked confused. One laughed. "A garden? That's what frightened you?" Eldon slowly turned toward them. "There were kingdoms before yours. There were civilizations before ours. And according to the oldest records, there was once a place where all life began." The laughter disappeared. Within an hour, the royal council gathered. Arguments erupted immediately. "We should destroy it." "No, we should seal it forever. It could contain monsters. It could contain disease. It could contain forgotten weapons." General after general demanded caution, but Aldrich remained unusually quiet. He remembered something. The tree had only awakened after Leora touched it. Finally he spoke. "No one touches that door until I know why it opened." The council reluctantly obeyed. That night, Leora couldn't sleep. She stood near her bedroom window, staring toward the glowing tree. For reasons she couldn't explain, she felt as though someone was calling her. Not with words, with memories. A soft warmth spread through her chest. She placed her hand over her heart. "I know you." The sentence escaped before she realized she'd spoken. Yet she had no idea whom she meant. Just before dawn, a deep vibration echoed through the castle. Guards rushed into the courtyard. The massive stone door was opening by itself. No one touched it. No machinery moved. The gigantic entrance slowly revealed an endless staircase, descending into darkness. Cool air flowed upward, carrying the scent of rain, wildflowers, and fresh earth. Impossible! Nothing underground should smell alive. Aldrich refused to send soldiers alone. He formed a small group. Only 5 people would descend. Aldrich-01, Leora-01, Seren-01, Eldon-01, 2 elite royal guards. Torches were lit, weapons drawn. They began descending. The staircase seemed endless. The deeper they walked, the quieter the world became. Eventually, even the sounds of the castle vanished. After nearly an hour, the staircase ended. Everyone stopped. Before them stretched something no one believed possible. Not ruins, not caves, a vast underground paradise. Crystal rivers flowed beneath glowing trees. Flowers illuminated the darkness with soft emerald light. Ancient birds nested peacefully in enormous branches. Butterflies larger than hawks drifted lazily through the air. Golden vines climbed towering stone columns. The ceiling sparkled like a night sky filled with stars. Seren whispered, "This shouldn't exist." Even Aldrich forgot to speak. As they walked deeper, something remarkable happened. The flowers slowly turned toward Leora, thousands of them. As if recognizing her, the crystal river began glowing brighter with every step she took. Birds landed nearby without fear. A family of white deer emerged from the trees and calmly bowed their heads before her. Leora stepped backward. "What are they doing?" No one answered, because no one understood. The group discovered an enormous circular temple at the heart of the hidden garden. Its ceiling reached hundreds of feet into darkness. Gigantic murals covered every wall. Unlike ordinary paintings, these appeared almost alive. The murals told a forgotten history, not of kings, not of battles, but of creation. They showed rivers forming, mountains rising, forests growing, animals filling empty lands, and always one radiant woman walked among them. Wherever she stepped, life followed. Flowers bloomed beneath her feet. Trees bent gently toward her. Birds circled above her shoulders. She carried no crown, no weapon, only a simple branch covered in blossoms. Leora stared at the murals. Her breathing stopped. The woman's face was identical to hers. The same eyes, the same smile, the same hair. Even the tiny birthmark near her collarbone appeared in the carving. Seren looked back and forth between the mural and Leora. His face turned pale. "Aldrich, tell me you're seeing this too," the Alpha answered quietly. "I am." Leora stepped closer. She reached toward the ancient carving. The moment her fingertips touched the stone, the entire temple erupted with emerald light. The murals began moving, like living memories. Ancient voices echoed throughout the chamber, not speaking any language anyone recognized, yet somehow everyone understood. When life forgets its beginning, the garden shall remember. When darkness returns, she shall walk among the living once more. The floor beneath the temple began glowing. Ancient roots spread beneath transparent crystal. The entire sanctuary awakened after thousands of years. The blind historian slowly fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. "I spent my entire life searching. I thought these stories were only myths." He turned toward Leora. His voice trembled. "You are not blessed by the guardian of life. You are not chosen by her. You are..." Before he could finish, a deafening explosion shook the sanctuary. The entrance staircase collapsed behind them. Dust filled the air. A wave of black energy surged through the underground garden. Flowers instantly withered wherever it passed. Crystal rivers darkened. Ancient trees cracked. A chilling laugh echoed across the sanctuary. So, the first garden truly survived. From the darkness, a tall armored figure slowly emerged. His black armor looked fused with stone. Ancient crimson eyes glowed beneath his helmet. Behind him marched hundreds of warriors, made from black crystal. Each carried weapons older than any kingdom. The hidden sanctuary had finally been found. Malrek looked directly at Leora, not with hatred, with satisfaction. After centuries of searching, his journey was over. He smiled. "I have crossed deserts that swallowed empires. I have outlived kings, watched mountains crumble, and waited through 1,000 generations." He slowly removed his helmet. His face bore the scars of countless ages, yet his eyes burned with unnatural life. Then he said the words that froze everyone in place. "I finally found you, my creator." The peaceful sanctuary shook violently. Crystal rivers overflowed. Ancient trees groaned as black crystal vines spread across the sacred ground like living serpents. Wherever the vines touched, flowers turned to ash. Grass became grey. The air itself seemed to lose its warmth. The beautiful garden that had survived thousands of years was dying before everyone's eyes. The Alpha immediately drew his sword. "Protect Leora!" Seren and the royal guards formed a defensive circle around her. Across the garden, Malrek walked forward slowly. He wasn't rushing, he wasn't angry. He looked like a traveler who had finally reached his destination after centuries of wandering. Without warning, Malrek raised one hand. The black crystal warriors charged. The underground sanctuary erupted into chaos. Steel clashed against crystal. The royal guards fought bravely, but every shattered enemy simply rebuilt itself. One guard split a crystal soldier in half. Seconds later, the broken pieces crawled back together. Another guard crushed an enemy's skull. The body immediately stood again. Seren shouted, "They can't die!" Aldrich growled, "Then keep cutting them down!" The battle echoed through the ancient garden. Leora refused to hide. She rushed toward an injured royal guard. His chest had been pierced by a crystal spear. Blood soaked the ground beneath him. He smiled weakly. "Your Majesty, leave me." Leora knelt beside him. She held his shaking hands. "I won't." She closed her eyes. Not knowing why, she simply wished with all her heart that he would live. A warm emerald glow spread beneath her palms. The wound slowly closed. Broken ribs reformed. His breathing steadied. The soldier stared at his own chest in disbelief. I'm alive." Nearby warriors stopped fighting for a moment. They had just witnessed a miracle. Not medicine, not magic. Something far older. Instead of becoming angry, Malrek smiled. His expression almost carried relief. "There you are, the power I have searched for." Aldrich pointed his sword toward him. "Who are you?" Malrek looked directly into the Alpha's eyes. "I have had many names. Kings called me a conqueror. Priests called me a blasphemer. History called me a monster. But before any of that, I was simply the first man who feared death." The battlefield became strangely quiet. Even the crystal soldiers stopped moving. Thousands of years ago, before kingdoms, before wolves, before civilization, Malrek had been a brilliant scholar. He watched everyone he loved grow old. His parents died. His wife died. His daughter died. No matter how much knowledge he gained, he could never defeat death. His grief slowly became obsession. He searched every mountain, every temple, every forgotten ruin, until one day he found the first garden. There, he met the radiant guardian who protected all living things. She welcomed him without fear. She taught him that every life had value because it was temporary. Birth, growth, love, loss, renewal. That was the balance of existence. But Malrek refused to accept it. If life can be created, it can be possessed. He secretly began stealing the life force from forests, animals, entire villages. The more life he stole, the younger he became, the stronger he grew. Eventually, he declared himself above nature itself. He would never die again. The murals surrounding the sanctuary suddenly awakened. Ancient memories filled the chamber. Everyone watched the forgotten past unfold, like living visions. Malrek stood upon burning mountains. Entire forests withered around him. Rivers turned black. The skies darkened. Countless civilizations vanished. Not because of war, but because one man refused to die. Finally, the guardian of life confronted him. She carried no sword, no armor, only compassion. She begged him to stop. Even after everything he had done, Malrek answered by trying to absorb her power. The battle that followed nearly destroyed the world. Unable to kill him, she made the ultimate sacrifice. She shattered her own divine essence into countless fragments. The life energy sustaining Malrek disappeared. He was defeated, but not destroyed. The guardian herself also vanished. Her soul scattered across humanity, waiting for the day it would become whole again. The visions ended. Silence returned. For the first time in his life, Aldrich realized this conflict had nothing to do with kingdoms, nothing to do with wolves. His people weren't facing another enemy, Alpha. They were standing inside a war that had begun before history itself. He looked toward Leora. She stood trembling. Tears streamed down her face. The memories she had witnessed felt strangely familiar, as if they belonged to her. Leora suddenly clutched her head. Pain surged through her mind. Fragments flashed before her eyes. Children laughing beneath enormous glowing trees. Animals gathering without fear. Mountains covered in endless flowers. A smiling woman placing her hand upon a young man's shoulder. That young man was Malrek. He wasn't cruel then. He laughed. He smiled. He thanked her for saving an injured bird. The vision changed. Greed replaced kindness. His eyes darkened. His hands reached for power. The final memory shattered into darkness. Leora collapsed. Aldrich caught her before she hit the ground. "It's all right," she whispered through tears. "I know him. I remember him." Everyone expected him to attack. Instead, he slowly walked closer, stopping only a few steps away. "I never came to destroy you. I came to finish what began long ago." He looked directly at Leora. "You still believe you're human. You still pity strangers. You still heal instead of ruling." His smile faded. "But once your memories fully awaken, you'll remember the truth. You created me. You forgave me. You failed to stop me. And this time, you will give me what I deserve." Aldrich stepped between them. "You'll never touch her." Malrek laughed quietly. "You misunderstand. I don't need to capture her. I only need her to remember." The sanctuary suddenly trembled. At its center, an enormous tree of crystal and living wood slowly emerged from beneath the earth. Its roots spread through the entire underground kingdom. Golden sap flowed like liquid sunlight. Eldon gasped. "The heart root! The source from which all living things once drew their first breath." Malrek's eyes widened with hunger. As long as the heart root exists, so does the last piece of her divine essence. He raised both hands. Black crystal storms erupted across the sanctuary. The heart root began to crack. The sanctuary started collapsing. Stone pillars shattered. Crystal rivers overflowed. Ancient creatures fled into darkness. Seren shouted, "We have to retreat!" But Aldrich refused. He looked at the wounded soldiers, at Leora, at the dying garden. Then he planted his sword into the earth. "I don't care if you are an immortal. I 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 don't care if you are an immortal. As long as I breathe, you will not reach her." For the first time in centuries, Malrek's smile disappeared, not because he feared Aldrich's strength, but because he recognized something he had once lost, a man willing to die for someone else. The heart root released a blinding pillar of emerald light that engulfed Leora. Ancient symbols appeared across her arms, glowing like living vines. The sanctuary fell completely silent. Then, she slowly opened her eyes. No longer filled with confusion, but with calm recognition. She looked directly at Malrek and softly spoke words that had not been heard for thousands of years. Malrek, I gave you life once. Do not force me to watch you lose it again. Malrek fell to one knee, not in surrender, in reverence. The Alpha watched in stunned silence as the immortal who had never bowed before any king bowed before Leora. The emerald light surrounding Leora slowly faded. Silence consumed the sanctuary. Every crystal soldier stopped moving. The vines spreading corruption across the garden froze in place. Even the collapsing temple seemed to pause, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Leora slowly opened her eyes. They were still the same warm hazel eyes Aldrich had fallen in love with. But now, there was something ancient within them. Not pride, not power, but endless compassion. She looked around the sanctuary as if greeting old friends. Her fingers brushed the trunk of the heartroot. I remember, she whispered. I planted you. The massive tree responded. Golden branches stretched toward her. Leaves shimmered, like thousands of tiny stars. The entire garden brightened. Aldrich stepped closer. Leora. She turned toward him. For a moment, he feared the woman he loved had disappeared forever. Instead, she smiled exactly as she always had. The same gentle smile, the same kindness. She reached for his hand. I'm still me. I simply remember more than I did yesterday. Aldrich exhaled in relief. He realized something. The ancient memories hadn't erased Leora. They had only completed her. Leora slowly walked through the sanctuary. Every step restored life. Withered flowers bloomed again. Broken branches rejoined. The poisoned river became crystal clear. Animals cautiously emerged from hiding. White birds filled the air. Butterflies returned. The black crystal corruption dissolved wherever she passed. The garden itself seemed joyful. Not because a goddess had returned, because its oldest friend had finally come home. Malrek watched quietly. There was no hatred in his eyes, only desperation. He walked toward Leora. His enormous army remained behind him, silent. He stopped, only a few feet away. You remember everything now, she nodded. I do. Then you remember what I lost. She lowered her eyes. I remember. You watched my family die. I begged you to save them. You refused. Leora answered softly. I couldn't stop time. You could create life. I could begin life. I could never steal another's destiny. Malrek's voice shook. I wasn't asking for kingdoms. I wasn't asking for power. I only wanted one more day with them. Leora's eyes filled with tears. I know, I cried with you, but grief cannot become chains. If no one died, no child would ever be born. If no season ended, no spring would ever return. The world survives because life keeps moving. Malrek clenched his fists. I refuse to let go, she whispered, and that refusal destroyed everything you wanted to protect. Malrek looked toward the heartroot. He understood. As long as it existed, life would always remain beyond his control. His face hardened. If I cannot own life, no one will. With a furious roar, he drove both hands into the ground. Every remaining crystal soldier shattered into black energy. The energy rushed toward him. His armor fused with living crystal. His body grew taller. Massive jagged wings erupted from his back. The corruption spread faster than ever before. The sanctuary trembled violently. The heartroot began dying. Golden leaves turned black. The sky above the underground garden cracked with crimson lightning. Aldrich drew his sword. Seren, protect the heartroot! The captain nodded. Royal warriors charged. Crystal monsters erupted from the ground. The battle became chaos. Steel clashed against crystal. Explosions echoed through the sanctuary. Seren fought beside Aldrich, back to back. Every step forward cost another enemy, yet more kept appearing. They weren't trying to kill the Alpha. They were buying Malrek time. The Heartroot whispered inside her mind. Destroy him. Ancient power surged through her body. She could feel enough strength to erase Malrek forever, but she closed her eyes. No, Aldrich shouted. Leora, she calmly answered. If I destroy him with hatred, I become the very thing he became. Instead, she walked, not toward safety, toward Malrek. The crystal monsters ignored her. Flowers bloomed beneath every step. The corruption retreated. Life and decay collided around her like two oceans. She finally stood before Malrek. His monstrous form towered above her. He raised a blade of black crystal. She didn't move. Instead, she gently placed her hand against his chest. You are tired. He froze. You've carried your grief for thousands of years. His breathing became uneven. You've forgotten their voices. You've forgotten their laughter. You don't seek your family anymore. You only fear becoming alone. Malrek's eyes widened. For the first time in centuries, he remembered his little daughter running through flowers, his wife laughing beside a river, his aging parents smiling proudly. Not perfectly, only fragments. Enough. Tears slowly rolled down his face. I can't remember their faces. His voice broke. I've lived too long, Leora answered. That is why life was never meant to last forever. The black crystal, covering Malrek's body, began breaking apart. Not because Leora attacked him, because he finally released the stolen life he had clung to for thousands of years. Golden light escaped from every crack. The countless lives he had imprisoned returned to the world. Flowers bloomed across the sanctuary. Forests outside the kingdom began recovering. Rivers across distant lands cleared. Animals long thought extinct emerged once more. Malrek slowly became an old man, then older. Wrinkles covered his face. His hair turned white. His body trembled. He smiled peacefully. For the first time since losing his family, his heart felt quiet. He looked at Leora. I spent centuries chasing forever, when all I ever wanted was yesterday. She gently held his hand. And yesterday was always meant to become a memory. He nodded. Thank you. The wind carried away the last grains of his body. He didn't scream. He simply faded into golden dust. The immortal who had refused death finally accepted it. Victory should have felt joyful. Instead, the heartroot continued cracking. Golden light poured from its trunk. Eldon suddenly understood. The garden exists because her divine essence remains here. If the corruption is gone, the power holding this place together will return to the world. The sanctuary began dissolving. Ancient buildings became light. Crystal rivers floated upward like stars. The first garden had fulfilled its final purpose. Leora quietly watched the disappearing garden. She smiled sadly. Aldrich walked beside her. What happens now? She looked at the fading heartroot, then back at him. There is one choice left. If I return fully to what I once was, I will live forever. But I will no longer belong to this world. She gently touched his face. If I stay with you, I must give up eternity. A brilliant gateway of living light slowly opened above the dying garden. A warm voice echoed through the sanctuary, not commanding, simply waiting. Leora stood between two futures. One path led back to endless divinity, the other to a single human lifetime beside the man she loved. Aldrich reached out his hand, but did not ask her to choose. The first garden was disappearing. One by one, Its crystal rivers dissolved into streams of emerald light. Ancient trees became thousands of glowing leaves that floated into the sky. The magnificent temple slowly crumbled, not into rubble, but into light. It was as if the garden was returning every borrowed piece of life back to the world. Above the sanctuary, the gateway of living light continued to grow brighter. It radiated peace, not power, not judgment, only home. Leora stood silently before it. For the first time in thousands of years, the world waited for her decision. A warm voice echoed through the sanctuary. Not from the sky, not from the earth, from everywhere. Your task is complete. The balance has been restored. Come home. Golden light surrounded Leora. Ancient memories flowed through her one final time. She saw the birth of forests, the first rainfall, the first flower blooming beneath an empty sky, the first child laughing beside a river. She remembered every season, every civilization, every creature she had ever protected. She remembered thousands of lifetimes. Yet, one memory shone brighter than all the others. A quiet human herbalist, smiling while planting flowers outside a small cottage. That memory belonged to Leora, not the ancient guardian, simply Leora. Aldrich stood several steps behind her. His hands trembled. Every instinct told him to beg her to stay, to tell her he loved her, to ask her not to leave him, but he couldn't, because real love could never become another chain. He slowly walked toward her, then stopped. If returning is what brings you peace, I won't stand in your way. His voice almost broke. You've already saved my kingdom. You don't owe me your life. Leora looked at him. Tears filled her eyes. She smiled gently. You still don't understand. You were never my obligation. You became my choice. Leora stepped toward the glowing gateway. The entire sanctuary became silent. Then she stopped. She looked down at her own hands. They still carried the same tiny scars from years of gathering herbs. She laughed softly. So many centuries. And these are still my favorite hands. She slowly turned around, facing the world she had come to love. Then she raised both hands. Golden light spread across the sanctuary, not as destruction, as blessing. The heartroot burst into countless seeds of emerald light. Millions of glowing seeds rose into the sky. Some drifted into distant forests. Others settled inside rivers. Many disappeared beyond the horizon. Eldon whispered, "The first garden. It's becoming the whole world." The sacred sanctuary wasn't dying. It was multiplying. From this day forward, life would no longer depend on one hidden place. Every forest, every valley, every river would carry a tiny part of its blessing. No one would ever be able to corrupt all life again. The ancient voice spoke once more. Will you return? Leora closed her eyes. She took one final look at the endless gateway. Then she smiled. No. The light around the gateway paused. She continued. I have watched countless generations live. I have protected kings whose names are forgotten. I have seen mountains rise and seas retreat. But I have never experienced something as precious as growing old beside someone I love. The ancient voice remained silent. Then it answered warmly. Then live. Not as our guardian, but as yourself. The gateway slowly closed, not in disappointment, in blessing. The divine power surrounding Leora gently flowed out of her body. The glowing symbols upon her arms disappeared. The endless divine aura faded. She remained standing, simply a young woman, for the first time, completely human. Aldrich slowly approached her, almost afraid she might disappear. Leora, she laughed through tears. I'm still here. He wrapped his arms around her. not as an alpha embracing a goddess, not as a king claiming a queen, simply a husband holding the woman he loved. Around them, the last blossoms of the first garden drifted through the air like snow. Even Seren quietly looked away, smiling. Eldon wiped tears from his old face. After thousands of years, the longest war in history had ended, not with conquest, not with revenge, but with forgiveness. Weeks later, the Iron Fang Kingdom welcomed its rulers home. The same nobles who had once mocked the human bride now bowed with genuine respect. But Leora asked for only one thing: no statues, no temples, no celebrations in my name. Instead, she ordered abandoned land to become public gardens. She opened healing houses throughout the kingdom. Children learned medicine alongside reading and writing. Every village received seeds from the heartroot, not magical seeds, ordinary ones. Because Leora believed miracles began with ordinary acts of kindness. Years passed. Iron Fang became known across the continent, not for its armies, not for its battles. Travelers came because no one went hungry. Forests expanded instead of shrinking. Rivers remained clean. Wildlife returned. Former enemies traded peacefully with the kingdom. People stopped calling it the strongest realm. Instead, they called it the living kingdom, a title Aldrich treasured far more than any crown. Many years later, Aldrich and Leora sat beneath a young tree overlooking endless green valleys. The tree had grown from one of the last seeds of the first garden. Children laughed nearby. Some planted flowers, others chased butterflies. Leora leaned against Aldrich's shoulder. Her hair now carried a few silver strands. Aldrich smiled. "You know, you finally grew older than me," she laughed. "I always wanted wrinkles." He looked at her. "You've had eternity." She gently squeezed his hand. "No, I had existence. This," she watched the children playing in the fields, "is life." As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the mountains, a little girl ran toward Leora, carrying a tiny flower. "It wouldn't bloom, but when I planted it, it reminded me of you." Leora smiled. She knelt beside the child. "Flowers don't bloom because of me. They bloom because someone cared enough to plant them." The little girl smiled and ran back to her friends. A soft breeze passed through the valley. Thousands of wildflowers swayed together, not because a goddess had returned, not because of magic, but because hope had taken root in the hearts of ordinary people. The camera slowly rose into the evening sky. Below, the former first garden no longer existed, because now the entire world had become its garden.